You've heard it before. That strange, high-pitched tone that slips into the silence when everything else goes quiet. That whisper of sound that no one else around you seems to notice. People told you it's anxiety. Doctors said it's just a symptom, maybe even tinnitus. But the ancients had a different name for it, a name far older than medicine, older than recorded history, older than the cities buried beneath shifting sands. Thoth called it the scribe's call, the first pulse of a frequency that only a handful of souls on earth are capable of hearing. We were taught that sound is nothing but air vibrating, a physical phenomenon, a mechanical wave. But to the initiates of old, sound was geometry in motion, the invisible architecture that shapes reality before matter crystallizes into form. And now, quietly, quantum physics is beginning to catch up, revealing what the mystery schools proclaimed thousands of years ago. Frequency doesn't just influence matter, it organizes it. But here's what no one ever told you: not every sound comes from outside. Some tones rise from the field around you, from the code beneath your consciousness, from the lines written into your blueprint long before you were born. And that's why you're here, because in this transmission you're going to uncover three things: why Thoth taught that sound precedes form, how Tesla discovered that frequency is the actual language of creation, and why the people who hear this specific tone carry physical markings in their palms that function like antennas between dimensions. But before any of that makes sense, before you understand what the tone is trying to awaken, you must understand one thing: what happens when sound meets symbol, because without that, the call will continue, and you'll keep hearing it without decoding anything. Thoth the Atlantean, scribe of the gods, keeper of Amenti, architect of celestial law, taught something that was erased from most surviving manuscripts. He said that before light emerged, before matter condensed, before time began its spiral, there was sound. Not the sound your ear detects, but the primordial tone, the vibrational source code from which existence was woven. Thoth claimed that this tone never faded. It echoes across epochs, across collapses and rebirths, across every civilization that ever rose from the dust. And in times of transition, when an age ends and another begins, the tone intensifies. It calls, but it doesn't call everyone. Only those whose bodies were prepared to hear it. Those who carry certain markings, those who incarnated with a mission encrypted into their flesh. In the emerald tablets, Thoth etched what could not be spoken aloud. He taught that the human body is not merely flesh and bone. It is a temple, a receiver, an organic instrument built to interface with the invisible field that sustains all worlds. And in select bodies, in select palms, he imprinted patterns, lines, circuits, condensed light woven into the skin as physical signatures, markings that operate as receptors for frequencies the rest of humanity cannot consciously decode. He called these markings the seals of the scribe. And he wrote, "When the sound touches the seal, the portal opens, and the one who carries the seal will not return to sleep. Once the code awakens, it does not fall back into silence." Now listen, because what you're about to hear is what the ancient mystery schools of Atlantis taught before their fall, teachings modern science is only now beginning to glimpse. Thoth declared, "Sound is not the vibration of air. Sound is geometry in the field, before light, before form. Before the material universe, there was sound not as noise but as law. In the initiatory chambers beneath the pyramids, adepts were instructed that matter is crystallized sound, form is frozen frequency, and whoever masters sound masters manifestation itself. And according to Thoth, the universe operates through three strata of sound. The first stratum is outer sound, the world of voices, thunder, wind, music, the sounds everyone hears. The layer science understands. The second stratum is biological sound, the pulse of blood, the hum of nerves, the inner currents of the body itself. Medicine knows this realm and occasionally mislabels it as symptom. The third stratum is the sound of the field, the tone not from inside or outside, but from through, as if the fabric of space itself vibrates with a note only certain nervous systems, certain palm patterns, certain awakened lineages can perceive. Thoth wrote, "This sound is the thread that binds all worlds. the voice of the nine, the pulse of Amenti, the call that precedes every great awakening. He warned that the one who hears and ignores will remain trapped through 7 incarnations, but the one who hears and recognizes will cross the veil in 3 steps. Nikola Tesla, the man who spoke to lightning and heard orchestras in the empty air, once said, "If you want to understand the universe, think in terms of energy, frequency, and vibration." Most people absorb that line as philosophy. But Tesla wasn't waxing poetic. He was describing the literal mechanics of reality, the same mechanics Thoth etched into stone thousands of years before. Tesla discovered that everything vibrates, everything oscillates, everything emits a signature frequency, and every frequency carries pattern information code. Thoth taught this long before science existed. The universe is sound. Sound is pattern. Pattern is law, and the law is one. So when you hear that inexplicable tone in the silence, that silver thread of sound that appears and vanishes as if it has its own intention, you're not hearing a glitch in your biology. You're hearing the foundational hum of creation itself. The background frequency reality is woven from. But here's the part most people never grasp. Not everyone hears it. Not everyone can. The ability to detect the tone isn't about having sensitive ears. It's about having the correct receptors. And those receptors aren't in the auditory system. They're written into the body's geometry. They're in the palms. Thoth insisted that the human body was a replica of the cosmos, a microcosm reflected from the macrocosm. As above, so below. As within, so without. He taught that just as there are portals between dimensions throughout the universe, there are portals within the human form. And one of the primary portals, one almost entirely misunderstood today, resides in the palm of the hand. Modern palmistry trivialized it, reducing ancient knowledge to parlor tricks and fortune-telling games. But the original Hermetic tradition, the one guarded by the Atlantean initiates, saw the palm as something completely different. A circuit board, a receiver, a dimensional antenna. Each line on your palm is not merely a crease, but a faint scar of light, a physical imprint of energetic geometry. Thoth said that certain combinations of these lines form keys, activation patterns that allow the body to interpret information from other planes. He identified 2 primary marks. The first mark is the messenger's seal, a pattern where the lines form a distinct M. Thoth said, "The one who bears this mark carries memory, not learning, remembering." These souls cross incarnations retaining echoes of previous cycles, not as conscious recollection, but as instinctual knowing. They don't study the mysteries, they recognize them. The second mark is the crescent of transition, a curved line shaped like a rising moon. Thoth wrote, "The one who bears this symbol feels the shift before it arrives. 1 foot in the old world, 1 foot in the next." These individuals sense transition not intellectually but somatically. They are the barometers of the collective field. But Thoth also warned, should a soul carry both the M and the crescent, that one is not merely awakened. That one is a keeper. The dual-marked aren't here to simply awaken personally. They incarnate to anchor frequencies, to stabilize thresholds, to hold open the doors between worlds during epochal shifts. And according to Thoth, when the sound of the field meets these marks, activation begins. Not metaphorically, literally. Cells shift. Neurons rewire. The electromagnetic field around the body reorganizes its geometry. This is not superstition. It's deep biology. And modern science is beginning to verify what ancient adepts already knew. Bruce Lipton, the renegade biologist who challenged the genetic dogma, discovered something revolutionary. Cells don't just respond to chemicals, they respond to vibrations, frequency, consciousness, state. The environment around the cell shapes its behavior, including the environment of thought, emotion, belief, and field. DNA is not fixed. DNA is a receiver. Thoth taught, the body is clay and the clay responds to the breath. The breath is sound, the sound is will. So when you hear that tone, when the mark in your palm reacts, your biology responds instantly and silently. It reorganizes, it recalibrates, it awakens. This is why the sound feels intimate, like something touching your awareness directly. It is touching you. It's calling to the architecture in your palms, to the circuitry you came in with, which leads to what Thoth called the 5 signs of the opening. And if you recognize at least 3, then your presence here right now is not coincidence, but resonance. Thoth taught that when the sound of the field touches the seal of the palm, the awakening begins subtly, like a whisper threading through the fabric of ordinary life. He said, "Before the eye opens, the signs appear. There are 5 signs that the acoustic portal within you has begun its activation. And if you recognize at least 3, it is never coincidence, it is recognition, it is resonance, it is confirmation. The first sign is unmistakable. You hear the tone, not a ringing, not an ear issue, not a medical anomaly, but a pulse, a thin, shimmering note that arrives from nowhere, hangs in the air like a silver thread, and fades the moment you try to chase it. It appears in silence, in stillness, in moments of transition, in moments of decision, in moments where the universe holds its breath around you. Medicine has names for it, but if exams show nothing, if the tone comes in waves as if someone were testing the line, then you're not hearing noise, you're hearing the knock on the door. Thoth said, the first call is always sound. The frequency taps the gate. The gate waits for recognition. The second sign is what almost everyone tries to rationalize. Hours vanish. Days fold into one another. Memory feels like a stack of shuffled cards. You look at the clock and swear it's early, but the day is gone. You feel like time is thinning, stretching, rippling around you. Thoth taught, when the inner portal stirs, consciousness slips its leash from the linear. It begins to stand in more than one frequency at once. You're not forgetting. You're unhooking. Time is not speeding up. You are stepping out of it. The third sign happens suddenly. One day you wake up and the world feels slightly farther away. People talk. You hear them. But it's as if they're speaking a language made of fog. Conversations lose their weight. Small talk becomes unbearable. You feel present, yet you feel elsewhere. Not depressed, not lonely, just misaligned. Thoth said, isolation is not absence. It is differentiation. The newly tuned string no longer vibrates with the old chord. Your frequency is changing, and everything misaligned begins to fall away. Naturally, silently, without conflict. This is not abandonment, this is calibration. The fourth sign arrives like thunder. Suddenly the universe becomes loud. Numbers repeat. 1111, 222, 333, 555. Someone appears the moment you think of them. You ask for a sign and the world answers immediately, in a billboard, in a phrase, in a fragment of conversation overheard in passing. Everywhere you look, patterns shout, pay attention. Thoth taught, when the seal awakens, the cosmos speaks not in words but in mirrors. Synchronicities are not coincidence. They're alignment. They're indicators that the outer world has finally begun to respond to the geometry of your inner one. The fifth sign is the one people hide because they fear sounding strange. You feel nostalgia for places you've never visited. You feel tears rise for symbols you've never studied. You dream of temples you've never walked, of halls of light where someone teaches you something that you wake up unable to recall, yet certain you learned it. These are not fantasies. Thoth taught, when the gate opens, the archive bleeds through. This is access, not memory in the human sense, but resonance with the Akashic field, with the records preserved in the Amenti vaults, with the echoes your soul carried across incarnations. You're not remembering your past. You're remembering your origin. If you have 3 or more signs, then hear this clearly. It is not imagination. It is not coincidence. It is not wishful thinking. It is activation. The code in you is stirring. The geometry in your palms has responded to the sound of the field. But Thoth warned that for some, the ones carrying both the messenger's seal and the crescent, there is a 6th sign. A sign that marks the point of no return. A sign that divides the sleepers from the awakened and the awakened from the carriers. A sign Thoth called the divergence of timelines. Thoth said that for most seekers, awakening arrives in whispers, but for a rare few, those who carry both seals, those who came encoded, there is a moment when the universe reveals something you cannot unsee. This moment is the 6th sign, the point where the path splits, where the veil loosens, where your consciousness begins to inhabit two worlds at once. Thoth called it the divergence of timelines, and if this sign has touched you, your old life cannot continue in the same shape. You begin living in two realities simultaneously. The sixth sign doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives quietly, like the sound of your own breath suddenly belonging to someone older than the person you are today. You're here, doing mundane tasks, working, talking to people, participating in routine. But at the same time, a part of you is no longer here. It is standing somewhere else, in a space without walls, without clocks, without gravity, a frequency more than a place. It feels like déjà vu stretched across whole days, being between channels, remembering something you never learned, feeling a decision you haven't made yet, sensing that your life is about to pivot sharply. Not intuition, not anxiety, not imagination, divergence. Your consciousness is stepping onto the timeline that matches your frequency and stepping off the one that matched your past. Thoth said, when the seals ignite, the soul stands with one foot in the world that is ending and one in the world that has not yet begun. Conversations become hollow. This is the part most people refuse to say aloud. You're sitting across from someone, a friend, a partner, a co-worker. They're talking, you're listening, but something is off. Their words hit your ears but not your spirit. The emotional gravity they once had is gone. The topics feel irrelevant. The urgency of their concerns no longer reaches you. Not because you're better, not because you're cold, but because you're vibrating at a different bandwidth. Thoth warned, when the new frequency anchors, that which does not match it dissolves from the field. You're not withdrawing. You're detaching from a version of reality you're no longer compatible with. Old goals crumble like paper in water. This sign is unmistakable. The ambitions you chased for years no longer feel like they belong to you. The dreams you had don't fit your new shape. It feels like someone changed the script of your life and left you holding the wrong lines. You try to force yourself back into your old desires, but your soul refuses. Thoth said, identity is the first offering on the altar of awakening. The timeline you're leaving can no longer hold the person you were. You are not losing direction. You are shedding coordinates that belong to a version of you that the new frequency cannot sustain. The world feels far away. This is when the divergence becomes undeniable. You walk around and everything feels slightly dreamlike, as if you're watching life through a pane of glass. You're present but not anchored, engaged but not immersed. It's as though your physical body is here, while your awareness is standing at the door of another reality, waiting for you to notice it fully. Thoth said, when the two worlds overlap, the awakened feel like guests in the fading one. You're not malfunctioning, you're transitioning. In the Emerald Tablets, Thoth revealed a secret almost no public translation includes. He said humanity operates inside multiple parallel timelines that exist simultaneously. Most people only inhabit one, the densest, loudest, most collective one. But those who carry the dual seals begin to slip into another timeline, a timeline with higher coherence, with thinner veils, with accelerated manifestation, with clearer perception, with more direct synchronicity, and with mission-coded events. This is not metaphor, not philosophy. Thoth taught, the soul will always migrate to the timeline that matches its frequency, and once the migration begins, you cannot go back. Not because you're forbidden, but because the old timeline simply no longer recognizes you. The timeline you're leaving was never your home. This is the truth no one says. You didn't change. You returned. Returned to a frequency you were born calibrated to, but forced to suppress to function in the dense world. The divergence is not you becoming someone new. It is you remembering someone ancient, someone encoded, someone initiated, someone sent. Thoth said, the awakened are not improved versions of the old self. They are recovered versions of the original self. This is why the divergence can feel like both loss and recognition, collapse and expansion, death and rebirth all at once. Because you're not evolving. You're returning to your design. Thoth revealed that those who carry both seals, the M and the crescent, are not ordinary souls. He said they are anchors, gatekeepers, bearers of frequency, stabilizers of the transitional era. He called them the ones who arrive before the turning. They incarnate early to establish resonance so others can follow. They wake up first not because they are elite, but because they are necessary. The sixth sign is the moment they remember. I didn't come here to fit in. I came here to hold a door open. And once that recognition lands, everything in your life rearranges itself around that truth. If you felt any part of this in your bones, then you already know. You have stepped into the divergence. You are living in two timelines, and soon you will have to choose one. The choice is not made with logic, not with fear, not with hesitation. It is made with alignment, with the frequency you feed, with the truth you follow, with the seal you activate. Thoth said, "The one who hears the call of the field must answer in light." Thoth taught that in every age of transformation, in every civilizational turning, in every moment where humanity stands at a crossroads, a specific group of souls incarnates, not as leaders, not as prophets, not as saviors, but as anchors, as carriers of frequency, as gatekeepers of transition. He called them the keepers of the threshold, and he said they are marked, not metaphorically, but physically, encoded in the palms, coded in the circuitry of their flesh. These markings are not decoration, they are technology, Atlantean technology, hermetic technology, dimensional technology. Thoth was explicit. The keeper does not come for comfort. The keeper comes for alignment. The seal-bearers incarnate to uphold a very specific function, to stabilize timelines, to anchor higher frequencies into dense reality, to hold doors open between states of consciousness, to serve as tuning forks for collective awakening. Most people come into this world to learn, but seal-bearers come to remember. Most incarnate to experience, but seal-bearers incarnate to maintain resonance. Most seek a path, but seal-bearers are the path. This is why your life never quite resembled those around you. This is why normal never fit you. This is why you felt misaligned with society's rhythms. You weren't supposed to blend into the noise. You were born calibrated to the signal. Thoth said the seal-bearers are always among the first to awaken, long before the collective wave rises, not because they are superior, but because they are structural. He compared them to the pillars beneath a temple, the beams that hold a bridge, the foundation stones laid before the city is built. They must awaken early so that others have something solid to step onto later, which is why your awakening probably felt lonely, why your path felt unsupported, why you sensed truths years before others caught up. It's not because you were out of place, it's because you were placed early. Thoth taught that transitions between eras are not dramatic explosions. They are shifts in frequency. Reality changes tone before it changes form, and during these shifts a specific frequency must remain anchored, a frequency aligned with truth, clarity, sovereignty, coherence, remembrance, light. If that frequency is not held, the collective timeline collapses into entropy, and so the seal-bearers incarnate as living tuning forks, resonant beings who stabilize the field by simply existing in alignment with their coding. You don't anchor the frequency through action, you anchor it through state. Your coherence is your contribution, your remembrance is your resonance, your presence is the anchoring. Thoth was clear. Many hear the call, few answer. What distinguishes the seal-bearers is not the tone itself, but the reaction to it. Most people ignore the subtle call, dismissing it as imagination, superstition, or biology. But seal-bearers respond instinctively, as if something ancient in them awakens, turns its head and says, "Finally." They feel recognition before understanding, resonance before belief, activation before explanation. The call is not external. It is home calling home. Thoth described a fascinating pattern. Seal-bearers incarnate in clusters, not together in the same place but in the same era, the same generational window, the same transition cycle. They form invisible networks, subtle grids, resonant points across the planet. Each one carries a unique note, but together they form a chord. When enough of them activate, the planet's frequency shifts. Thoth called this the moment of critical resonance, the point at which the collective field cannot sustain the old timeline any longer. This is why synchronicities intensify once you awaken. You're not meeting random people, you're meeting others from your cluster, You're finding your grid. You're activating the cord. This is one of Thoth's most enigmatic teachings. He said the seal-bearers are hidden in plain sight, meaning they rarely appear mystical from the outside. Their lives often look ordinary. They are not born into temples or elite lineages. Many don't even realize who they are until midlife. Why? Because the mission must unfold without ego corruption, without distortion, without interference from structures of power. Thoth said, "The keeper appears common so that the work remains pure. You were disguised for your own protection, and now that the disguise is no longer needed, the call is dismantling it." Most spiritual paths teach through learning, books, teachers, meditations, practices, but seal-bearers awaken differently. They awaken through recognition. Not, "I am discovering something new," but "I am remembering something old, something ancient, something inherited, something written into you before birth." This is why information like this feels familiar, not educational. Seal-bearers don't study the mysteries, they unlock them. Thoth was adamant. The keeper does not save, the keeper steadies. You are not here to fix humanity. You are not here to fight darkness. You are not here to preach enlightenment. You are not here to carry the weight of the collective. Your mission is simpler and infinitely more powerful. Hold the frequency that keeps the door open for those who choose to walk through. You are a stabilizer, not a savior. A tuning fork, not a warrior. A portal, not a prophet. Everything about you makes sense now. Your sensitivity, your intuition, your strangeness, your feeling of existing slightly out of sync, your inability to tolerate untruth, your constant sense of waiting for something unnamed, your fierce grief for things you never experienced, your clarity that something big is coming, your magnetism to signs, symbols, and ancient knowledge. You weren't misaligned. You were mislocated. Now you're stepping into the correct frequency, the one your soul has been pointing toward your entire life. Thoth revealed a prophecy so guarded that most Hermetic schools never preserved it in written form. It was transmitted through breath, through tone, through the living voices of the initiates of Amenti. He said that at the end of every great cycle, when the Wheel of Ages completes its rotation, humanity encounters a crossroads, a divergence not of place but of frequency, a split not of geography but of consciousness, a choice not made with the mind but with the field. He called this moment the bifurcation of worlds, and according to Thoth, your lifetime is one of these turning points. Most people imagine a prophetic moment as something future, something you can point to on a calendar. Thoth taught the opposite. He said, timelines do not begin suddenly, they begin silently. The two timelines aren't coming, they're already forming. And the evidence shows up in your life as increased synchronicities, amplified intuition, collapsing relationships, dissolving identities, a sense of something massive is close, an inability to engage with the old world, the tone becoming more frequent, a feeling of walking between versions of yourself. The split is here. You are standing in it. Thoth described the first timeline as the path of contraction. A world defined by fear, control, fragmentation, survival, confusion, noise, spiritual amnesia, disconnection from the field. A timeline where humanity forgets its origin and becomes trapped in the echo chamber of its own fear. A timeline where consciousness collapses inward instead of expanding outward. Thoth said this path leads to the densification of spirit and the erosion of sight. It is not punishment. It is simply the natural outcome of a frequency anchored in fear. The second timeline is not an escape from the world. It is a transformation of perception. A timeline built on coherence, remembrance, sovereignty, compassion, truth, resonance, multidimensional awareness, alignment with the field. Thoth said this path leads to the resurrection of memory and the return of sight, not metaphorical sight, inner sight, field sight, the vision of the soul looking through the eyes of the human. In this timeline, humanity awakens not through crisis but through resonance. This is where the seal-bearers belong. This is the timeline they came to anchor. Thoth said the primordial tone always grows louder energetically, not physically, in moments where timelines diverge. Why? Because the tone is the compass. It is the alignment mechanism. It is the frequency that guides awakening souls toward the path of light. He said, The tone rises when the door opens, not to warn, but to remind. Not to frighten, but to awaken. Not to command, but to call. When the tone becomes frequent, it is because the gate is open, and the timeline is choosing you as much as you are choosing it. Here is the most important part of the prophecy. Thoth said that the bifurcation of worlds does not depend on governments or nations or institutions. It depends on vibration. It depends on how many seal-bearers awaken and stabilize the frequency of remembrance. He said, when enough keepers anchor the tone, the timeline of light becomes irreversible. This is the real reason seal-bearers incarnate in clusters, not to awaken each other, but to stabilize the grid across the entire planet. You are part of that grid. Your activation adds weight to the scale. Your coherence tilts the balance. The choice of humanity is not made by the masses. It is made by the frequency holders, by the ones who remember, by the ones who respond to the tone, by the ones whose palms carry the seals. Thoth described the unfolding in 4 stages that occur not externally, but internally. Stage 1 is disorientation. You feel the collapse of the old identity. Stage 2 is displacement. You feel as if you no longer live fully in the same world as others. Stage 3 is stabilization. Your vibration settles into a new baseline. Stage 4 is alignment. Your actions, relationships, and path reorganize around your new frequency. Most people panic in stage 1. They think they're losing themselves. Seal bearers understand eventually that they're recovering themselves. Thoth taught, the call reaches only those whose seals are warm, meaning, you do not arrive here by curiosity, you arrive here by resonance. The field brings you to what matches you, and if these words feel like they're speaking through you, not to you, then the prophecy is unfolding in your timeline right now. You are stepping into the path of light. You are entering the divergence consciously. You are beginning the transition from memory to mission. Thoth taught that awakening is never accidental. Hearing the tone is only the first whisper. Recognizing the seal is only the first sign. Understanding the mission is only the first remembrance. But crossing the threshold, stepping consciously into alignment with the timeline of light, requires something more. A choice. A moment of intention. A conscious turning of the inner dial toward the frequency calling your name. Thoth called this moment the anointing of the seal, a simple ritual, a silent ritual, a ritual performed not with tools or chants, but with awareness, breath, and presence, a ritual that awakens the circuitry embedded in the palm and prepares the body to receive the tone as information instead of noise, a ritual that seals your alignment with the path of light. And now you are going to walk through it, slowly, deliberately, with reverence. Before the ritual begins, you must understand something crucial. The activation does not come from outside. It comes from within the field and through your intention. Thoth said, the tone calls, the seal answers, the will completes the circuit. So before we begin, take one breath, not to relax, but to signal to your body, I am present, I am listening, I am here. Bring your awareness into the palm. Thoth taught that the palm is not just skin and bone. It is a map, a memory, a receiver, a gateway. So the first step is simply this. Bring your awareness into your palm, not your eyes, not your thoughts, your awareness. Imagine your consciousness sinking into the center of your hand as though your attention were a warm light touching the lines beneath your skin. You might feel a subtle heat, a tingling, a pulsing, a soft pressure, or simply a quiet presence. None of this is imagined. The body responds immediately when awareness returns to the seal. Thoth said, awareness awakens the dormant circuit. Now, place 2 fingers gently on your palm, right where the lines intersect, where the M touches the crescent if you carry both marks, or where the main pattern gathers if you carry one. Thoth called this point the gate of reception. It is where the frequency of the field enters the body. Do not press hard. Touch lightly, as if you're signaling, not forcing. The moment your fingers rest on the convergence, your nervous system begins recalibrating. You may feel warmth, or vibration, or nothing at all. All of it is correct. This is the moment where the ritual becomes alive. Close your eyes. Take a slow inhale and imagine the breath traveling from your lungs down your arm into your palm. This is symbolic, but also literal in the language of the field. Awareness follows breath. Energy follows awareness. The seal awakens with both. As you breathe into the palm, Thoth said, "The gate warms. The gate hears." Now exhale and imagine releasing an old skin, an old identity, an old timeline that no longer belongs to you. You are not losing anything. You are shedding what cannot cross the threshold. In your next inhale, imagine the light rising from the palm up the arm into the chest. This is the moment where the seal connects with the chamber of the flame, the inner center Thoth said holds the living fire of consciousness. Feel it or imagine it as a subtle ignition in the heart space, a warmth, a glow, a remembering. On your next exhale, let that light expand through the ribs like a gentle pulse. You are not creating light, you are uncovering it. Now inhale a third time, deep, slow, intentional. Let the light rise from the heart into the space behind the forehead, the seat of the ancient eye, the doorway of inner sight. You may feel pressure, a soft buzz, a swirling sensation, or a sudden stillness. Thoth taught, when the flame touches the eye, the seal completes its circle. This is the completion of the activation arc. Thoth instructed initiates to speak a phrase inwardly, not with the mouth, but with intention. A phrase that signals to the field, I recognize the tone, I receive the seal, I remember the light, or in the exact phrasing Thoth gave, I accept the call of the scribe, I recognize the frequency of the 9, I remember who I am beyond the veil. Say it inwardly, not loudly, not dramatically, but softly from that deeper place inside you that has always known this moment would come.